awesome. Now, when there's so many barriers to something, it's very important, which makes sense because tonight's actually a very, very holy night. Tonight is the night of Lubavitcher Rebbe's birthday, and it's 120 years, and 120 is the number of completion in the cycle of life. As we know, Moses was 120, so we view it as like a very huge number, a very significant number, a very holy night. So obviously there's barriers to every step of the way. I mean, that's just like how it works, right? We get it. I'm excited everyone's on, and I'm excited we can talk about Passover and understand what's going on by the Seder. Now, one thing, so last week we discussed some of the spiritual elements, and we also discussed very practically how to do Passover. And I realized afterwards, or I think at the time maybe even I realized, but I just wasn't sure, so I didn't say it. One thing that I did not mention that's very important is on Friday night and on Saturday night, eat your matzah after 8:10. After 8:10, meaning some people have family seders or with young children and they make it earlier, but the matzah cannot be eaten before 10 after 8 Friday night and 10 after 8 Saturday night. So I hope in the interim, because I gave a very big commercial for it last week, everyone got their round handmade shmura matzah. People say, what's shmura? What does that mean? Is that a company? Shmura means guarded, because the wheat that makes this matzah is literally watched from the moment of harvest. Meaning when it's growing as a stalk of wheat on the ground, it can get wet. The rain can come on it. It's not a problem. From the moment it's harvested, it's not supposed to come in any contact with water. Well, how do we know what happened from the harvesting till you come to the matzah bakery? Well, shmura matzah, that wheat is watched from its harvest until it comes out as a matzah. Every step of the way, there are people watching it. Special, as we call it, mashgichim, people that watch to make sure no water comes in contact with this flour or grain. And if it does, it's disqualified. We can't use it for matzah. So it's very, very holy matzah. I hope everyone got enough to eat all Passover, that matzah, and for sure, at least for the first 2 seders, Friday night and Saturday night. And again, eat your matzah at least about a half a matzah, over a third, basically stick to a half to be safe, after 8:10 Friday night and after 8:10 Saturday night. I also wanted to mention that next week we're not going to have a class because it's Passover, but we will have one the week after. Hopefully people then will be able to share all wonderful things about that they experienced over Passover. We also wanted to dedicate this class to the healing of Hannah's son, Raphael, Moshe, the son of Hannah, that he should have a complete, absolute healing. Okay, so now let's continue what we were doing, which is talking about the Seder. Now, the Seder is the term we use for the very, very special, very ritualized ceremony that we're going to have this Friday night and this Saturday night. And again, if you don't do the Seder, at least make sure you eat approximately a half a shmura matzah Friday night and Saturday night after 8:10, because that is supremely important. But hopefully you're going to do a whole Seder. So we briefly went through the steps just to give a feeling, because if you do the whole Seder, there's a lot of ritualized steps, and you might not really appreciate what they're all about. So I'm going to remind you very quickly of what we did, and then we're going to continue. The first step is called Kaddish, which is the ceremony of making the Kiddush. We actually drink 4 cups of wine over the Seder, but the first one is with a Kiddush. And we said it symbolizes separating from the world and then being able to go back in and sanctify the world. So we want to be free from things that imprison us, to separate from them, and then to be able to utilize them for God and sanctify them. Orchatz, the second step, is the ritual washing of the hands, like we wash for a piece of bread, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but we're not washing for bread. We're actually washing for a wet vegetable, the boiled potato or onion dipped in the salt water. And the reason legally we washed for it, we said, is because that's the law. You have to wash your hands ritually if you're going to eat a wet vegetable. or fruit. Not wet with its own juices, but wet with something like water or milk or wine or something along those lines. But we said spiritually, washing the hands is to purify that with which we interact in the world, and to pull together our mind and our heart. Our mind and our heart are often in very separate places, and we are trying to pull them together, and that we can do through this spiritual service to help us to be mindful, not just to instinctively react to the world around us, but to mindfully react, that again, our mind and our hearts talk to each other. Karpas is the vegetable in salt water, which we said the vegetable traditionally was the onion. They could also use a boiled potato. So it's sharp, bitter, the salt water, the tears, remembering the tears, remembering the labor, tasting the humility, and helping us liberate ourselves to understand we can liberate ourselves and be humble before God, or we could be enslaved to the world around us, which is probably a harsher enslavement. The yachatz, the fourth step, is breaking the middle matzah, expressing this idea of God made a world where a lot of things seem broken, and how in the broken we can hold the infinity of God. When we understand we're fragmented, when we understand we need others around us, when we understand much is missing within ourselves, then we can grow. Then we know we can start to grow. The fifth step is Magid, telling the story, understanding as we read that story about a redemption and enslavement 3,334 years ago, it's really telling the story of our lives. And we have to really look at what we're reading and think, how does this apply to me? And understand, because people would say, well, I'm free, I live in America. Say, no. You're free only when your soul is free. And then the sixth step was again washing our hands, this time for the matzah. And we're like, wait a minute, we already washed our hands. What does this mean? We already know what washing the hands means. Well, what our sages are telling us here is, you're never done. You washed your hands, you liberated yourself, you freed yourself, you made yourself mindful, you integrated your mind and your heart, and guess what? You got to keep going. It's not something you achieve and are done, you have it under your belt, yes, I'm free. No. What the Exodus gave us wasn't freedom, it was the power to perpetually transcend. And that's what we're trying to access by the Seder. We said moitzi, the seventh and eighth step are the blessings we make before the matzah, which again, you're going to eat. It's the critical essence element of the Seder. It is the only part of the Seder that's still biblical. You're going to eat it after 8:10 Friday night and after 8:10 Saturday night, at least a half a shmura matzah, handmade round shmura matzah. You can buy it in Jewel, you can buy it in Mariano's, you can buy it in Hungarian. It is the most critical part of the Seder. If you're having a number of people, have enough matzah so everyone gets a half of a shmura matzah each night. Very important. It's expensive. But this is the only time of year I can tell you, you are literally eating godliness. When you eat the matzah, you are eating godliness. So step 7 was mitzi, which is the blessing before the bread, which we said sort of symbolized the whole process of how one makes a bread, the grains, the growth, because you put a seed in the ground and it rots and decomposes and loses its original form, and then it sprouts and grows. And that's a very important lesson. Not to say I'm stuck, I'm underground, I'm rotting, but my challenges in life help me discover the strengths of my soul. I'm sure we have many people here that are strong, free women who discovered much strength through these decomposing experiences. If you can raise your hand, if you relate to that, if you say, yes, I'm a strong woman, I'm a free woman because I went through a lot of decomposing experiences and they definitely helped me grow, helped me become the person that I'm striving to be. I don't think it's just me and Chava. So think about it. Think about it and maybe remember times when you went through some of these decomposing experiences and it really helped you grow moisi, the bread. And step 8 is matzah, which means a special blessing on the matzah. So as we said, this is the highlight. When you're eating matzah, you are literally eating godliness. It's flour, water, and it's godliness. You are eating faith. You are eating humility. I make a point to eat matzah every single day of Passover. I don't eat bread during the week, like only on Shabbos, only on the Sabbath, basically, like 99% of my life. But on Passover, I eat matzah every single day. Why? Because if I have an opportunity to eat godliness, I'm not going to hold myself back. I'm going to go for it. So I'm not just going to, oh, it's Passover and it's a Seder, so let me take a nibble. No. I'm going to eat it and feed my soul. This is literally eating godliness. Please, for sure, at least the 2 nights of the Seder, Friday night and Saturday night, eat handmade round shmura matzah. Ideally, eat handmade round shmura matzah every day of Passover. What an easy way to get close to God. And again, if you're having a Seder with a number of people, not just yourself, please make sure that you purchase enough of this handmade round shmura matzah that every person there can have a half a matzah. Oh, a half a matzah, they take a bite. No, tell them, guys, this is not ceremonial stuff. This is real deal. This is eating godliness. This is eating belief in God. This is eating humility. Everyone here has to eat it. No chicken soup for anyone that doesn't do a good job eating that matzah. Make sure they all eat it after 8:10. So please raise your hand who already has purchased handmade round shmura matzah for their 2 Seders, Friday night and Saturday night. Raise your hand, your virtual hand. Bella's raising her real hand, and Fig is raising her virtual hand, and I'm raising my virtual hand, and Menucha's raising, and Chava's raising, and Rachel's raising. Wow, we are amazing. Every single person here has handmade round shmura matzah for both Seders. I am so proud of us. Wow, I am so proud. This is amazing. Please make sure, buy your Seder. Everyone eats about a half of that matzah. If you're having, well, you have 3 matzahs. No, but if you're having a lot of people, if you're having 10 people, you have to have 5 of them. Well, a pound has about 8, so you're safe because you have to buy at least a pound. But you have 2 nights, you have 2 Seders. Figure it out. Make sure you have enough for each person, a handmade round shmura matzah, half a matzah. I'm so proud of us. That's amazing. And ideally try to eat it every day at Passover, because literally it's like God saying, just eat this food and you're eating godliness. So you have such an opportunity. I mean, me, I grab it with both hands. So that's all we did last time. That's why I just reviewed it very quickly. We're up to step 9. There are 15 steps of the Seder. Step 9 is the maror. Maror means the bitter herbs. Now, the maror is generally horseradish root and romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce, you can say, doesn't seem so bitter, but we're told that it sort of has this sort of bitter, like it starts off tasting sweet, but then it sort of ends up tasting bitter. Honestly, I never noticed. To me, it always tasted fine. But the horseradish definitely is sharp. And of course, if you want to make sure it's sharp, you hand grind it and you make sure no air gets in and you keep it very sealed, and then it can be very sharp. But we do something interesting at the Seder. We have this very bitter horseradish with lettuce, and then we have this very sweet charoses. Delicious apples, pears, wine, nuts ground up together. It's supposed to remind us of the mortar, but it really tastes very good. So we dip this very bitter, sharp horseradish root and romaine lettuce in this very sweet, delicious mortar-like, we call it charoses. Ground apples, pears, nuts, and wine. What are we doing? So again, the symbolism is the maror, the bitter, symbolizes the bitter, the setbacks, the pains. But this is a Seder. I'm getting the spiritual core of everything. I understand the bitter is the catalyst for my growth. And I'm dipping it in that sweet charoses to remember that the purpose of the bitterness is to reach a greater good, a greater freedom. and we want to become free. And a person could be a slave. Yes, we're in the 21st century America, and there's plenty of slaves out there in this world. Actually, probably most of the world are slaves. Most of the world, perhaps ourselves included, are enslaved to something. Some people are enslaved to money or to other people's opinions or to their figures or to their jobs or to so many slaves. But when you're free, it means you're saying, I could change. I'm not stuck. So when we're eating the maror and we're reflecting on some of the bitter stuff, the pains and the setbacks, remember, it's for the charosas. It's for something sweet. It's for us to reach a greater freedom. We can tell ourselves, I don't belong to my habits. I can change. And then in step 11, we bring it all together because we make a sandwich. It's called in Hebrew korech. And we take 2 pieces of matzah and we put in the middle the horseradish and lettuce, and we eat it together as a sandwich. We're bringing it all together, which sort of symbolizes how life can be very fragmented, and we have to bring it all together. We have to realize it's all part of a whole. So when we're in this slave space, like we feel all these different things are pulling at me. I've got to clean, and I've got to talk to my mother, and I've got to buy this item, and I've got to. And free means you can synthesize everything in your life together. You don't have to feel split up and fragmented and pulled. It's all part of one organic whole. It's part of serving God. And every detail is part of that same whole. So that's freedom. And then we come to 11. And 11 is the meal. Is that a step? Absolutely. A ritualized step? Absolutely. Does it have a spiritual point? 100%. It's really expressing this point. Take all this physical and use it to serve God. Now, for many of us, food actually is an incredible symbol of what we're struggling to achieve by the Seder. Because many people are enslaved to food. They might even say they live to eat. They might not say it, but they might act it. And a free person is like, no, I'm a food liberator. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. So when you're at your meal, this meal that's of like every other part of the night of Seder symbolizes your journey, your personal journey of liberation and freedom. As you're eating your meal, it's a good time to think. I know it's late. I know you're tired. I know you got a lot of matzah. But it's a good time to reflect. Am I a slave or am I free? And if you feel, I don't know, sometimes I feel a little enslaved to food, it's a wonderful time to turn to God and say, please help that this eating helps set me free. Now, if you're not enslaved to food, that's not your issue. You're enslaved maybe to something else, but you're not enslaved to food. Then you can understand the intention of the eating is this most strong expression of the whole general purpose of our existence. The whole purpose of our existence, in essence, is to make physical spiritual. And by taking the physicality of our world and giving it to God, there's some very physical parts like food and money. These very physical things really are vehicles for the greatest spirituality. We say, as we might have mentioned before Purim, that in a sense, Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, is not as holy as Purim. Because Purim is so for God in such a physical way. Yom Kippur is so for God, but we're angels then, dressed in white, in synagogue, no eating, no drinking, just angels. That's beautiful, that's spiritual, that's holy. But God says, I want the physical. So I'd rather have Purim. So when we're eating the meal, I'm sure it's going to be a good meal. I'm sure you're all making really good meals. But when we're eating that meal, remember, this is it. This is a synergy of body and soul. This is liberation. I eat to serve God. That's liberation. And then we come to step 12. And guess what we do at step 12? We eat matzah one more time. Yeah, we eat matzah 3 times a Seder night. We first eat it for the mitzvah, the biblical command to eat matzah with those 2 blessings. Then we eat it in the sandwich. And then after the meal, when you're completely full and the last thing you want is to put another piece of food in your mouth, we eat matzah 3rd time. Why? Because this 3rd matzah is actually not, so to speak, for matzah. It's actually for the sacrificial lamb, for the sacrificial Passover offering of roasted lamb that God could still pull together for us because, hey, it's Monday and we could have the redemption and be in Jerusalem with our lambs by Friday. But if that's not going to happen, if that's not in God's script, if we're not going to listen it from God, but maybe we will, and that would be really, really a far better story than I'm saying. But if God forbid we don't, we're going to be eating matzah a third time. And this is the holiest, most intense matzah. And that's why it's the last food we eat for the night. No nibbling when you clean up the leftovers. I know it's the only time of year. We always think, oh, it's mitzvah calories. You don't want to waste food. No nibbling, because once you eat the last matzah, you are done. You're going to have 2 more cups of wine, but no more food, because we want to taste the taste of that matzah all year long. The taste of godliness, the taste of belief in God, of humility to God, of feeling God in a very experiential way. It's actually the custom to save a little bit of that matzah, the matzah eaten for that final time, called the afikoman, and save it to feed a baby. That should be the first food a Jewish child eats when they're ready to start eating food, whatever, 6 months, whatever it is. The first thing they should swallow is matzah, handmade shmura matzah from the Seder Afikoman. It's that holy. And as we're eating, we're ingesting belief to the degree that we want to be that free person who says, in America or in English, you probably have an equal expression in Russian, but in English, there's an expression, seeing is believing. But we as Jews want to say believing is seeing. As we believe, we see. So we want to eat that matzah and believe and see. Step 13. Step 13 is called Beirach. And here we are going to pour the wine for Elijah, fill our own cup with wine, and say the long grace that we say any day of the year, with special additions for Passover and Friday night for Sabbath as well. Bench. And then we drink the wine. The theme of Beirach is confidence in God. God's in our life. Now, since we say basically the same after blessing any other day, it's sometimes easy to sort of forget it's the say there and everything so special. It's just something you're saying, but don't say it like any other day of the year. Say it with a lot of joy and sincerity, because you're initiating a reciprocal energy from God. In other words, tonight, the Seder night, we're commemorating the miracles. A lot of miracles happened in Egypt. A lot of miracles happened before the Exodus, and a lot of miracles happened during the Exodus, and a lot of miracles happened after the Exodus, and a lot of miracles continued for 40 years. Why did these miracles happen? Because they believed they would. That's why we say the women were really the catalyst to bring the redemption, not that they picketed outside Pharaoh's palace. We were the catalyst to bring the redemption because we believed. And that belief created the redemption for us and for the men as well. So when we are in the space of belief, in the space of joy and confidence and gratitude for the miracles that we know are happening and we're going to see happen, it creates them. And otherwise, we look at you. You could have been in Egypt. We all were in Egypt. Remember, we are all reincarnations of those righteous women that believed and created redemption. But you could have been in Egypt and said, oh, a bunch of plagues, a bunch of bad stuff happening. To see it as miracles, you have to open your heart and mind to receive God. And this is an opening we make when we thank God for the miracle of our food. In other words, all of us have experienced miracles. No question, every single one of us has experienced miracles. But not necessarily have we always recognized it a miracle. Or maybe we recognized it, but then we forgot about it. Or someone else said, miracle, I mean, well, I don't know why. And that sort of cooled us off. So when we are thanking God for the miracle of our food, And of course, this is especially the nature of a woman, because we are those true believers. We were the women that created the miracle of Exodus by believing it. So when we're thanking God for the miracles of our food, we're really acknowledging our lives are strings of miracles. Our lives are miracles again and again and again and again and again. So when we're looking at our food, we don't like this slave, okay, I thank you, God, you gave me what I need. No, we're like, God, you're giving me everything. We create miracles by our belief in them. And I am sure that we have created miracles. I'm sure you've created miracles here. By believing, you've created miracles. Someone here can remember a miracle she created by believing in that miracle, by trusting God was going to come through, and he did. Someone remembers one they would like to share? Doesn't have to be the biggest, most earth-shattering, but you believed, you trusted, and God came through. And sometimes God gives us free gifts, obviously. And I'm sure many of us have experienced miracles and we're just like, God was really kind. God was really kind. But I believe we've also created miracles by trusting and knowing that God's going to come through. And our believing in the miracles created them. Anyone can think of a time like that in their life? Well, then we have to do a lot of work by the Seder ladies. We got to do this. I want, just like every single hand went up, yes, I have shmura, handmade shmura matzah for the Seder, half a matzah, both nights, no problem. Every hand should go up and say, yes, I have created miracles. I believed and God came through. God always comes through. We have to believe and he comes through. And again, it could be something small. Could be something huge. It could be something sort of in between. But our belief creates those miracles. We've got to believe, and our belief creates those miracles. So after the Seder, I want to hear about a lot of miracles. Step 14, Hallel. So the way the Seder is structured, the first half of the Seder is from the beginning, like you'd say, up to the meal. And the second half is like after the meal. So the first half of the Seder, we're talking and we're celebrating and we're thanking God for the exodus from Egypt. And the second half, we're thinking and eating and focusing on the ultimate exodus, on the final redemption. So we're up to step 14, the Hallel. We fill up the fourth cup. Yes, you drink 4 cups. And we open the door for the prophet Elijah, which is a very significant moment. It's not just like a cute little thing for children. We truly believe he comes to every single Seder. We open the door. It's a night of protection. We're demonstrating our trust. And actually, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe said to his son, who would become eventually the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, think carefully what you ask for. Ask for significant things. Because this is a very significant moment. It's not like, no, it's real. No, keep the kids up. No, it's real. We really believe Elijah comes. We really believe he answers us. We really, really, really want to ask sincerely and get answered. So that moment, I know for myself personally, that opening up the door always feels so intense because I know he's there. I know Elijah the prophet is there. And I know he wants to say yes. And I want to make sure I organized in my head the right things to ask for. And also it's very important because whatever God tells us to do, he's doing himself. So when God tells us to open the door, he's opening the door. He's opening every door in the spiritual cosmos to the Jewish people. So that's why the Seder night is the night to make this quantum leap. And saying Hallel, thanking God for all of his compassion in Egypt, thanking God, anticipating the ultimate redemption, we are creating these miracles to happen again. You could say, Hallel was like me praising God. Why does God need my praise? Isn't he a lot bigger than my praise? He is. He doesn't need my praise. I need to praise God, because when I praise God for his kindness, I evoke it. I reveal it. I'm evoking God's desire to give. So that's, again, just like what we said in the prior step. We create these miracles. We evoke God's kindness, and the kindness flows. We believe in the miracles, and the miracles flow. Ladies, I really hope people have amazing things to say. Our next class after Passover, I want to hear the miracles you created. And the Seder night's a really special night to make it happen. So we shouldn't be like, it's the Seder, there's Passover. Okay, I'll make a little change. No, it's like, whoa, this is Passover. I totally changed. And then we come to the final 15th step. So what do we do in the 15th step? We say 3 words. The 15th step is 3 words in our part, which in English translates to a little more. Next year in Jerusalem is 4 words. Next year in Jerusalem. In Hebrew, it's 3 words. Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim. What are we doing in that step? We're saying, God, we did our part, and we know, and we trust, and we expect, and we believe that you're going to do yours. We've been singing your praises for taking us out 3,334 years ago. A lot more relevant to us, though that was also very relevant, but a lot more relevant is that you're bringing now the redemption, like a Exodus one more time, but much better. Ultimate redemption. When we say this line, we're saying, God, we did our part. We know you're doing yours. We know you're doing yours. I'm done. I'm done with Pharaoh. I'm done with Egypt. I'm ready for the redemption. And that is our final thought of the Seder. Now, what happens in Passover for many people is the Seder is a very intense time, very special spiritual highlight for the whole year. And though we get to do it 2 nights in a row, but it's a really special spiritual highlight. And a lot of people think, okay, the rest of the holiday, whatever, yeah, I won't eat bread and I'll eat matzah and whatever. That's not how it works in Judaism. In Judaism, we only go up in holiness. We don't go down. So the last 2 days of the holiday, again, are a holiday, meaning we have 2 holy days. Then we have the intermediate days when you can drive and use your phone and do mundane pursuits, or most mundane pursuits, are not all. And then we have the last 2 days of the holiday, which again are holy days. And those nights are, again, now we're coming to the climax of the Passover, because you go higher and higher and higher. So the 7th and 8th day of Passover are even holier than the 1st and 2nd. And each of those days has a very special energy. Thursday night, which is going to be Friday, not this Friday, a week from this Friday. Thursday night, Friday, is the 7th day of the holiday. We're not talking about this Friday, which is the eve of the holiday that begins Friday night. We're talking about a week from this Friday. Thursday night, Friday is the 7th day of the holiday. And Thursday night commemorates this very great miracle, one of the greatest miracles of all times, which was the splitting of the Red Sea. And it's sort of easy to make it practically applicable, because just think, they were stuck. The Jews had left Egypt, and suddenly Pharaoh's army is pursuing them, and the army is behind them, and the sea is in front of them, and what are we supposed to do? We can't go back. We can't go forward. Should we suicide? Should we surrender? Should we stop? And God said, keep moving. And they kept moving. And they walked into the water. And they walked into the water. And they walked into the water. And when the water came up to their nostrils, God split the sea. And that's, I think, a very natural transfer to our own lives, that sometimes we feel stuck. Nowhere to go. I can't go behind. I can't go forward. I'm stuck. And God says, you're never stuck. Keep moving. There's enormous spiritual energy Thursday night, meaning a week from this Thursday night. It's the custom of many to stay up the entire night learning. Some people stay up till daybreak, and at daybreak they pour some water on the ground and dance around it. It's a very, very holy time. And then it gets even more intense. The last day of the holiday, which this year is going to be actually on a Shabbos, not this coming Shabbos, but a week from the Shabbos. Friday night Shabbos is the last day of Passover. It's the most intense energy. It's the energy of Mashiach. Remember, as I sort of said in terms of the Seder itself, that it's structured first half commemorating the Exodus that was, second half, thanking God for the Exodus that will be, Egypt, redemption, Messiah. So also, in a sense, the first 2 days of the holiday are commemorating the first redemption we experienced 3,334 years ago. And the last 2 days are celebrating the final redemption. And this is especially true the last day, when the light of the Redeemer, of Mashiach, is literally shining in the world in a most revealed way. And it's interesting because we actually see it in the Torah portion of the last day. Now, of course, since it's Passover, every day we read a special Passover portion, not the regular portion of Torah that's normally read, but we also have a Haftorah on the holiday. And the Haftorah on the last day of Passover is the most beautiful prophecies about the redemption, and the most famous, all those famous words of Isaiah: the wolf will lie with the lamb, the young boy lead them. All of those words are actually engraved on the wall outside the UN building in Manhattan, and they'll beat their swords into plowshares. All come from this most beautiful prophecies about the redemption. So why are we reading on the last day of Passover? So the technical reason is, well, Isaiah, Yeshaya received this prophecy celebrating the victory the Jewish people had, Chizkiah, the Jewish people had over Sancherib on the first night of Passover. So why are we reading on the last day? Like we forgot, and now we're like, oops. No, we're reading it not because of the first night of Passover when Chizkiah had this miraculous victory over Sancherib. No, then we read the first day. We're reading the last day because this is such an intense prophecy about the redemption, and this is the day of the year when Mashiach's energy is shining. Now, the Baal Shem Tov, who was a founder of the Hasidic movement, he started this concept called Mashiach's meal, Mashiach Suda, to capture this energy. It's also like a mini Seder. We have the matzah. Again, have about at least a half of a round shmora matzah. So have this in mind when you buy your matzah. You want to have for this final mini Seder. And we drink 4 cups of wine. We don't read the Haggadah. We don't read the book. But we eat the matzah, drink the wine, and connect to each other and connect to the spirit of redemption. So just like the first days we tasted and digested the Exodus from Egypt, now we're tasting and digesting Mashiach to make it a vehicle to happen in this world physically. So now it's part of my physical flesh. And this also, and very importantly, helps us transfer from Passover to regular life and not leave the freedom behind. Meaning there's all the stuff we deal with, and then, okay, it's Passover, and then Passover ends, and then crash. All the stuff comes right back, crash. We want to take Passover with us. We gained in Passover. We ate the matzah every single day, handmade round shmur matzah. We ate godliness. We ate freedom. We ate belief in God. We ate humility. We did the 2 seders. We gained freedom. We gained detaching ourselves from our enslavement to this world and committing ourselves to be God's servants. We gain lessening or losing freedom from our ego. We don't want to say, okay, I'm Passover Egypt, back to what we used to be like. No, we want to carry this energy of matzah, of freedom, of ego-free existence, of the redemption of Mashiach with us every single day. So when we're eating this meal at the conclusion of Passover, what we're really doing is taking the energy of Passover and transferring it to be able to have it every single day of the year, which is really, really, really the point. So that was a very brief rendition. Hopefully now everyone knows exactly what to do, or somewhat what to do by the Seder, and a greater appreciation for the whole holiday, not just the Seder. The holiday continues and grows with intensity. Does anyone have, we have a few more minutes left. Passover has a lot of details. Does anyone have any questions about anything practically or spiritually that has to do with the holiday?
I miss number 9 after Maror.
Maror actually is the 9th step.
Then I miss number 8.
8 was the step of eating the matzah, meaning it was making the blessing and it was eating that matzah. It's in as we say, it is motzi, which means, like we would say, the blessing hamotzi, which is a blessing we make every time we eat bread. We make a blessing, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. That's step 7. We call it motzi, hamotzi, who brings out bread from the earth. In the desert, when the Jews for 40 years didn't have bread, they had mun. They made a different blessing. They said hamotzi lechem min shamayim, who brings out bread from heaven. And we, for 3,334 years, have been saying hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings out bread from the earth. So that's step 7, motzi. And we said the spiritual energy of that is understanding the process of that bread, understanding the decomposing seed that has to decompose and rot for it to sprout and grow, like us. Our challenges help us discover our strengths. And then step 8 was matzah, the special blessing on the matzah, which, bottom line, the work of the step is to eat a lot of matzah. This is feeding us godliness. It's such an unbelievable thing. What an easy way to get so close to God. And I was so proud of everyone because everyone has, for the Seder, handmade round shmur matzah. And then 9 was maror.
You just separated blessing and eating.
No,
right?
What I separated was there's 2 blessings on the matzah. First, you make the blessing, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, one who takes out bread from the ground. That's step 7. It's called motzi. I mean, it's not that I separated. This is how the sages explain it. These are the steps of the Seder. And then step 8 is the special blessing you make before the matzah only by the Seder. Meaning you're going to eat matzah every day of Passover, round handmade shmur matzah. But by the Seder, it's a biblical command. It's the only thing we have left in the Seder that's a biblical command. Maror is rabbinic now, because biblically it has to do with the sacrifice. The sacrifice, we're eating more matzah for, so we don't need that either. But what's still a biblical command is eating the matzah. And since it's a biblical command, we make a blessing before it, like we make a blessing for anything else we do. That's a command of God. So the blessing we make is al achilas matzah, for the special command to eat the matzah. The custom is actually that for 30 days before Passover, we don't eat matzah. Why? So the matzah should taste so good. So it should be so special to us. We want to enjoy it and savor it and eat a lot of matzah. So when the sages constructed this very, very ritualized 15 steps, which has a lot of spiritual intention, one step is the blessing that we would always make for bread, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, step 7. And step 8 is the special blessing to eat the matzah, al achilas matzah, and the eating of the matzah. Mm-hmm. And as I'm saying, this is really spiritually, you cannot intend at all. If you eat matzah, you're eating godliness. If you eat matzah by the Seder after 8:10, especially handmade round shmur matzah, be spaced out. You're eating godliness. How much more so if you're spaced in and know I'm eating godliness. I'm eating belief in God. I'm eating nullification to God. And again, we eat the matzah 3 times. This step, then step 10, when we have the sandwich, and then step 12, when we have the most intense matzah, in a sense, the matzah, the final matzah, what we call the afikomen matzah, which is representing the Paschal lamb. We'd rather have the Paschal lamb, but in the interim, this is very, very holy matzah.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Sure.
Yeah, so at Shul, which is a Chabad house, there was somebody who asked me a question that I was actually like, oh, I don't know. So I want to ask you. She was asking why we don't dip anything in matzah because it doesn't have yeast, so it can't rise.
Well, it's a great question. And by the Seder, we actually don't even dip it in salt. Meaning, generally throughout Passover, when you eat matzah, you're going to dip it in salt, just like we dip bread in salt. But by the Seder, we do not dip it in salt because we don't want any taste besides the taste of the matzah. It's not a fear of it rising. because the rest of Passover, we dip it in salt. We're not worried about salt causing it to rise. But we don't want, by the night of the Seder, when this whole intense experience climaxes with the matzah, we just want to taste matzah. We don't want any other taste in our mouth. And that's why we don't even dip it in salt. Nothing should disturb the taste of the matzah.
But what about for like the rest of Pesach? Like she was
So the rest of Pesach, we dip it in salt, no problem.
No, but I'm saying like she wanted to make like lasagna and pizza.
So there are people that do that and it's not a problem. There are people that don't. There's a concept, you might hear this term thrown around called gebrachs, if you ever heard that term. It's a Yiddish word. And what it basically means is some people have the tradition to be very careful to not mix the matzah with anything over Passover. The reason is, now this is not for the spiritual reason I just gave from, I misunderstood. I thought she was talking about the Seder specifically. The whole Passover for all 8 days, for example, we, my family, and most Chabad, don't mix the matzah with anything. If you come to me for a Passover meal, I know Menucha has, I don't think anyone else here has Menucha, but Menucha came. So maybe she remembers. We first ate the matzah, and then we cleared up the crumbs, and we had the meal. And we were done with the matzah. That's how we do it, because we literally don't mix the matzah with anything besides the last day of Passover. Because as we said, the last day of Passover, the energy of the redemption is shining. So we have no fear of the matzah getting contaminated with all that intense godliness. But besides the last day, we literally don't eat the matzah with anything besides salt. And we're so careful. We eat the matzah, and then we brush off our crumbs, brush off the table, put it away, like we're not touching it. And then we have the whole meal. But other people don't have that tradition at all. And other people can make matzah lasagna, no problem. Dip it in their soup, make knedlach. It depends if that's your custom or not. And again, the reason for the custom is because of our intense fear that maybe there's a piece of the matzah that's not baked properly. And if it comes in contact with a liquid, it could cause it to rise. So in case there's some unbaked, completely not 100% baked portion in the matzah, we don't want it to rise, and that's why we don't eat it with anything. But there are many good Jews that will make matzah lasagna. No problem. It just depends on if it's your custom or not. Any other questions? Meaning I'm not mitigating it. It is a custom, and it creates a lot of extra stringency on Passover. But if it's not their custom, it's not their custom. It depends if a person took that on as a custom or not. Any other questions about Passover, spiritual elements of it, or the practical elements of it? Okay. Well, you should have a very meaningful Passover, a time of liberation. I'm looking forward. I can't wait to be liberated. So a time of liberation, really should make it count. The more you invest, the more you will get out of it. It's like everything else in life. I remember this so clearly. My first daughter, who's now 32, so it was about 20 years ago, but my first daughter, by her bat mitzvah, I worked really hard for that bat mitzvah. I mean, I probably worked harder since on other things, but I remembered at the time, and I remember by the bat mitzvah, I felt such joy. I remember thinking, I feel the joy so intently because I really worked hard to make that party for her. So as per our investment, that's what we reap from it. So work at it. You got to clean, you got to shop, you got to cook. It's a lot of work. Try to be as careful as you can, getting that chametz, that leaven, that bread and cake and cookies and crackers and cereals and alcohol and perfumes and all that stuff out or locked away. As long as you sell it through me, you can have it after Passover. If you don't sell it, you can't. If you didn't sell it yet, please send me a notice so I can sell it for you. Get all that leaven out and eat your matzah. Eat through 8 days of Passover, a lot of matzah, eating godliness, eating belief, eating humility, eating connection to God. To be very, very, very meaningful. If anything comes up, if you have any questions on anything in connection with Passover, please feel free to reach out at any point. I hope everyone has a really, really liberating and meaningful Passover. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.